Hey Mountain View Eagles, today I would like to take you on a little guided tour of one great example of an important strategy habitat of the Willamette Valley, wetlands. And our best example of wetlands can be found in and around what we call the Big Pond. So let's go. We're gonna take a little tour of the pond and meet some of the important plants and animals just to see where they are. They each have their own special stories. There are so many stories living out here in the natural area. Today I'm just going to introduce you to some of the key dwellers of the wetlands. Now, the first thing you probably see when you get here is this great big cottonwood. Now, the cottonwood was here before the big pond. The big pond really, right now, is not a pond, is it? It was a pond. It's a real typical feature of wetlands to have ponds that are only part-year ponds. Now, our part-year pond was built about, 30 years ago by students and parents and volunteers, and they got some big equipment and pushed soil out from the middle out to the edges to create kind of a little wall or berm that was a good place to walk on, but also held water in. So in the winter, when the rains came, it would fill up, and some years more and some years less. So now that it's spring, it's kind of dried up. In the summer, it'll be really dry. You can kind of see, I don't know if you can notice, that there's a little bit less grass, but it is kind of like a sea of grass right now. So we've got the cottonwood trees were here. They were surrounded by grasses and wildflowers in the old days, like going back hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. The other thing that's there with the cottonwoods is willow trees, and we can see them better a little bit on the other side. Now, since they've been here for so long, they've got some good stories to tell. They are plants that love wet feet, so they're a good indicator that we're in either a streamside or a wetland. The sea of grass also has its own story to tell. This grassland that is wetland of the Willamette Valley was working with the Kalapuya indigenous people for thousands of years. And much of the valley has been grasses all along, or at least ever since the glaciers left and the big water across the valley left. Grasses are a big part of what's out here. Let's look at some of the other, just a quick visit, introduce you to some of the other beings out here. This leaf here, now it's got a lot of grass growing up with it, but it is a checker mallow. Now when we get to hear its story, it will tell us about its cousin, the Nelson checker mallow, that's an endangered species in Oregon. Now our checker mallow is really pretty common in wetlands and grasslands. The other thing that we see, you can kind of see one right here. See if I don't know if this will zoom a little bit. There it is. You see the blue? That is our common camas. Now there's a lot of it in here that we planted it. The students at Mountain View and volunteers planted some years ago, and it's gradually been spreading. Back in the days when the Kalapuya were managing this land, when it was their land, they had a sea of that. Instead of a sea of grass, it was a sea of grass with lots of camas in with it. And so that's another story that we'll get to hear. One of the important plants of our wetland. Let's see. The next thing, I don't know if you'll remember all of these from our quiet tour that we took on Tuesday, but this next area is the ash swale. Now, it's got another old story. Its story really, we can learn about the Oregon Trail and when the first settlers got here, and that change, the transition between the leaving, the forcing away of the indigenous Kalapuya, and the settlers took over. And these ash that had been there for years kind of disappeared, and they have a story to tell. Now, a lot of you, when you took that little walk on Tuesday, one of the common questions was, where are the birds? Why are there no birds in the birdhouse? Well, this one seems to be empty still, but it's hopefully someone will take it over this spring. It's often a home for swallows. The bird box way down in the southeast corner is, looks like there may be some activity there already. I didn't look in it the other day because I was afraid to scare anyone away. This right here, I don't know if you can see these shrubberies. Those were planted, and a whole line of them planted along this fence line. It's called spirea, and it's got a story to tell. And it was, we planted it as a hedge to be the edge of our wetlands between us and the neighbors that have, they farm and they mow, and it's different. All right, so I'm just going to look to the south where we have the other cottonwoods and the other ponds, and we'll visit them another day because they have a lot of similarities, but there's some special stories over there. So what I'd like to do is sort of walk into this sea of grass, find a place to sit, and we're just going to take a minute, a quiet minute. Now you can see this area here, there's not as much grass, and that's because this is where the water was deepest. And so there's less grass of the pasturey kind that was introduced as not native. And I'm hoping that in this area, as it gets later in the spring, we'll see that some of these grasses are tufted hairgrass, and some of them are probably rushes. So we will keep an eye on these. Now, what we're going to do right now is I'm going to sit, and we're going to just listen. There's one particular friend out here, one bird friend, that I'm hoping will come sing to us. So we're going to just get really quiet. Now, I can hear a few birds, but I haven't heard the one that I'm thinking of. So we're going to sit. Oh, maybe I do hear it. We're going to sit and look and listen. I'm going to show you, I'm wearing my dull green clothes. So hopefully they won't notice that I'm here. Tweet, 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 tweedly. That was kind of a cool little one. I'm not sure who that is. They call that a trill. Tweet, tweet, trrr. Ooh, I hear my friend. It's quieter. So I want you to listen for the sound neener neener or poke your neighbor. There was another one that I heard people say. It's a way of a lot of birds, the way to remember them and to learn their calls is to come up with some like clever little saying. So if you hear one that sounds like it's saying poke your neighbor or neener neener, that is the red-winged blackbird. They like to nest in and around wetlands and grasslands. I see them often up in these cottonwoods. So let's listen for neener neeners and poke your neighbors. One bird that I'm hearing over here to the right is the robin. It says, cheer up, cheerily, cheer up, cheerily. I just saw one of the blackbirds, red-winged blackbirds, fly over to this tree over here. Wow, lots of different sounds lots of different bird songs when you sit and listen quietly. Now I belong to this thing called iNaturalist, so I'm going to record this one that's beep beep, brrr, that one, and I'm going to see if we can get help from other naturalists to identify who that is. They definitely have set up they have these wonderful songs to try to find partners. They find each other that way. All right, this has been a really beautiful morning out here in the sun. One thing I like to do as a naturalist is sort of note down things like it's about 60 degrees out here, so the sun is feeling pretty nice and warm, but it's definitely not hot. The sky is open and blue except for just a tiny bit of hazy cirrus clouds way up high. It's a gorgeous morning with bird songs all around. Oh, I heard a neener neener off to the left, off to the east. Okay, so tomorrow, come back. We're going to go to the hedge forest, which is a great example of mixed conifer forests of Oregon. And in that forest, there are some interesting things happening. There's a bit of a mystery. Some of you may have seen it already. I don't know. It's a bit of foul play going on. Sort of an example of predator-prey things happening. Oh, I love the bird songs. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this little morning visit to the pond and wetlands, and we'll be back for more natural area field trips.